This gorgeous fall palette was screaming decadent elegance to me. So the plan was to try some trending ideas and just keep it simple. Of course, what came next was anything but. Once it clicked that the color scheme was perfect for steampunk nails, I just couldn't imagine doing anything else. So let me show you how I used a ton of different techniques to put these together. So of course I'm going in onto a set of press-ons. I have filed anything off my tips that needed to be, and just going in with my tip prep and my primer. I'm using this beautiful espresso set from by Muse. These colors are just so fall and so steampunky to me. So I'm starting out with BM10. All my nails are going to be different and very artsy. And I just do a jelly base to start, so it'll help deepen that color. My first thought was I was just going to do something simple and neutral for everyday wear. But seeing these colors, it just started screaming steampunk to me. And then that next coat, we're gonna pull the magnet out so we have just the jelly, and then bring it back. This is gonna help prevent a little bit of the streaking if there is any. Bring that magnet back nice and bright. And I'm just gonna keep working it. I want that nice glow on the entire piece. Doesn't have to be perfect because I will be layering plenty of things over it. Now that we have that glow lit up in the entire center of our nail, we're just gonna grab any kind of a cotton pad. You want one that creates a little more stringiness. And then we're just gonna take our nice center glow and we're gonna tap our cotton stripes onto it. Now the thing you don't wanna do is drag. Well, you can, but it looks a lot better if you just tap it and lift it. And it creates this like suede kind of pattern effect to it. Go as little or as much as you like. I've got one little hair there that stuck around, one little piece of fiber. So you want to check for fibers before you cure it if yours is like mine and it sheds. And look at how, oh, I see another little guy right there. And yeah, when I first started doing it, I found that I was dragging it too much and it wasn't giving as nice of an effect as if I just tapped and lifted it. So look at how neat that looks. It also looks like kind of crinkled paper, which is kind of what I'll be going for. Now this next thing I want to do is kind of age this up a bit because the idea is for it to look a little bit like paper. So I'm going to go in with BM15 and BM12. And we're just going to go in super, super tiny and light with these. So drop in a little wee bit onto my palette here and just kind of randomly placing it around and really feathering it out so it doesn't look like I've kind of clumped it anywhere. Just a few little spots. This is tough for me because I always tend to like overdo these kinds of things. More is not always better, but I have a hard time not doing more and more. And then I'm just going to take the more redder toned and I'm going to go in on some of the edge areas and just really kind of lightly age that. Just make sure it's really nicely feathered out so that you don't have what looks like brush strokes or blobs. I can always go back in and like darken up the center bits if I wanted, rather than going too thick right now and making it look placed. Like you don't want just a blob. You want melded color. So the idea we're going for is like an old parchment paper. And so I feel like that's been nicely aged up. You don't want to go all the way around the edges, but like here and there and just kind of spread it out. So that's given me aged look. And at this point, you don't want to get these magnetized. You want just that jelly color because it's letting the magnetism from the original base coat of color that we put down come through. So it just changes and highlights that. So we're just keeping it all jelly and not putting any magnetic touch to those new colors. You're just going to want to take some alcohol and wipe that so that you're not slipping around with your stamp. Next, I'm going to go in with this map image here. I've got a super dark plum. It's almost a black, which is why I didn't want black. I would have ideally had like a super chocolatey brown, like a black brown, but I just didn't have it. I didn't want black because it would be too dark, but I didn't have anything that was quite light enough. So we're going to go in with a base layer, cover that, and cure. Now that my base is cured, I actually want to go in and add just a little more of this reddish brown color to give it a little more aged look around. And it's going to layer a little bit over some of that stamping, just a little bit in a few little spots. So I put lots of nice extra highlights and stuff around it. And now that I'm liking the look of that, I'm going to cure. Next, I want to create some height on my nail. Now, if I had a good builder gel or something, I would probably be using that. But none of my builders were really feeling thick enough for it, so I'm going in with some Crazy Top Thick. And because I want to build some dimension on this for my next layer, so I start by doing my slip coat. And now that my slip coat is laid, I'm just gonna build it up some. It doesn't have to be too high, but just enough to get some dimension. So I'm gonna put down another layer, and I want to go in with this little anchor charm that I have. And I want that to sit as flat as possible. So I'm just gonna take a little piece of plastic wrap and push it over it to flatten it out, and then give it a quick cure under my stand-up light. And there it is. So here it's embedded my metal charm, really super nice and flat. I do have a bunch of weirdness from the plastic wrap that went up too high, but that's okay. That'll either get filled in or I'll buff it out. Then I'm gonna take a little bit of my like olive green color, and I'm just going to distress this anchor a little bit, just so it's not quite as glossy and metallic looking, just giving it like a little bit of age. And I'm just gonna like dry brush it a bit. I don't want loads of polish on it or anything, just a little bit of like speckling. Now that my distressing is cured, I'm just gonna go back in with another layer. Should fill in some of the gaps. And then if there's still some really high spots, I'll buff over it. So now my charm is well encapsulated, and I've got a nice 3-dimensional dome going on here. I'm actually gonna go and buff this out nice and smooth because it's not perfectly smooth, and there's still a little tiny bit of ridges from my plastic wrap situation. All right, so I've got my raised dome. I have buffed it smooth, and I've refined my shape again. So now the next thing I'm going to do is go in with another stamp. This time my stamp is going to have a chrome over it, so I'm leaving it buffed. Otherwise I would have put a matte coat down. I'm preloading my chrome powder onto my eyeshadow applicator so that I don't have to waste any time during my transfer process. And I'm just going in with this little compass here, pop it in that corner there. Go in with my chrome that up beautifully, wipe some away, brush it away, and last but not least, buff it up. That'll buff that nice up in there. Looks like it's time to wash my buffing cloth. It's putting a bunch of other sparkles from other sets on there. We don't want that. And we're almost complete. I'm going to go over this with a base to lock in that chrome so that there's no lifting from it, no chipping on my top coat. Last, I'm going to go in with my MAYO nice thin viscosity top coat. Here it is out of the light, all finished. There's so much depth to this nail, and you can even see the shadow underneath the compass that shifts on the nail because we left that gap. We built it up and put the stamp over top. So it creates a shadow underneath. And when you're looking at it in person, it floats, and it just looks so incredible up above on the nail. It makes it look so much more in depth and realistic and cool. So there's our first one. So now for both the ring and the index finger, I'm gonna be using BM9. So I'm just gonna go in and do essentially the same as the last nail by putting my original coat down and then removing the magnetic to leave just the jelly coat behind and curing that. Then the second coat. So again, I'm going to remove the magnet, and then I'm going to bring it back and bring it up nice and bright. I'm going to bring our glow to cover the whole face of the nail. And once again, now that I've got my whole face lit up, I'm going to go in with my cotton. That one's very cool. And these really would have looked so very beautiful, even just plain like this. Now that it's cured, I'm going to go in with a matte top, Zero Matte from Dvok. This is really good for isolated chrome, and that's what we're going to do next on them. So now that my backgrounds are all finished up, I am going to be going in with some more stamping images using a sticky polish so that I can chrome them yet again. I don't want it perfectly in the center because of what I'm working on. And I really love using like the Victorian look of stuff when I'm doing steampunk, as much as I love like the gears and things like that. I also really love all the pretty elegant stuff that kind of goes hand in hand with some of the looks. Chroming it up. All right, now after half a dozen tries, because I wasn't loving my placement because I needed more space over here for what I have next, I decided to go in with my sizing stamper and just shrink it down a little tiny bit so that I had a little more room to work with, but it didn't cover the edge and it did miss a little tiny detail here. So I'm just going to go in with a smidge of polish and fix that up. I did have to rush in with my chrome first just so that it would stick. There, I feel a little better about cleaning up some of those details. So then the other nail is going to have a French tip style design. And I'm actually going to see how it goes to shrink this one down just a little bit as well, just to get a little bit better placement and fit onto the nail. And if you do a lot of stamping, or if your stamping polishes sit for too long, it's a really good idea to get a nail lacquer thinner to help out, because if they sit open too long, or if you're using them way too often like me, and they just end up being open from use here and there, then they can start to thicken up, and they don't necessarily transfer nearly as well just because the polish has thickened. So it might not be about your technique, it might be about how thick the polish has gotten from sitting. So going in with my chrome right away. Some of these lines are really, really thin, so it might be a bit harder for the chrome to stick to them. That's another reason I want to be really, really quick with that chrome, because those super thin lines will dry very quickly, and then the chrome is not going to stick. I feel like I did pretty good there though. That placement for perfection is so hard, because looking through, it is so warped. Even though you can see your placement, it's so warped. So trying to make sure that you're lining it up perfectly is like, forget it. It's as close as you can get. But that's really tough for a perfectionist like me. But I do not have the time to try it 16 times to get it a fraction of a millimeter closer. So now at this point, I want to protect my stamping before going in with my next steps by putting down a base gel to seal it in. And my D-gel seems to work really well over chrome. And ideally you just float it over so that you're not scraping the image. But you have to watch, because some bases or tops will smear your stamping or your chrome. So now that I've got them sealed, my next step is to go in with some embellishments. And so I'm going to be hitting it with some chain. And I went digging around for some really lovely crystals. I've actually got a steampunk crystal collection from Swarovski, when they, back in the day, used to let us get their crystals. So what I've done here is just taken some like gold chain that, you know, the color is really bright, and yeah, it's just not really suitable for what I'm working on. So what I'm doing is I am distressing it with some of my different gel polish colors. So very simply, I'm just taking some of the colors and I am just coloring them up. I don't want to be too gloopy because I don't want it to look like there's paint on them, but I just want it to kind of distress that color. And I just go in with a few layers and do a little flash curing. And you will need to do this a few times to get it to color up, because you don't want it thick, but it just takes a minute. And I'm using an ombre brush just because it kind of like gets into the little nooks and crannies easier without loading too much. So there, now I've got my two different styles of chain, significantly grunged. And like you can see that you could just use the chain as is, but it's so gold, it's just not giving quite the same vibe as once you distress it and grunge it up. So I'm going to try out my JIN.B Gum Gel for this next stage. And this is supposed to act like a sticky two-sided tape kind of thing. So hopefully that will make applying these chains a little easier for me, because I'm not that great when it comes to charms, embellishments, 3D stuff. I don't have a lot of skill with that yet. So this, you apply it and then you put it into the lamp for 30 seconds. Now this layer should be super sticky. We'll see. We'll see if it is. Now, because this is so dimensional, this might not be the ideal product, but it does seem to be staying. I think something like my edge gel, I don't know, might be better, but we'll see. The gum gel certainly makes it easier to kind of get my placement figured out, because it helps it stick there and it's not like falling off. So that I really like. Really good for helping me figure it out anyway. Yeah, I would say gum gel for the win. It's making it really easy for me to shift this stuff around, kind of figure out where I'm going to want it to be without it slipping and sliding like it would with my layer on, or just rolling right off and struggling because there's nothing keeping it held there. So I'm not loving how high my edges are, like at the tip and at the base, but I'm going to try and deal with that down the road and see if I can't squash it a little bit after it's already been set in. Just because if I try doing anything with it right now, I don't know, I don't think it's going to work as well. So we'll see what happens. I may just have to accept that it's going to be, you know, high on the edges there. So because this is not set to the nail, it's just sticking to it, I'm going to go in with a rubber base just to kind of get it started to secure it. Something that's not too thick but not too runny. I just don't want to risk leaving like gaps where it's not attached. Okay, so both my chains are secured on. Now I'm actually going to go in and see if I can trim the edges. I wish I had cuticle nippers for this. That would work better. I should get some. But instead, these scissors are kind of trash, so I'm going to go in with these and just try and kind of take the edges off a bit, just so it's not as harsh. I know there's going to be there's a high point from the chains. It's very dimensional, but that's okay. I would just prefer not to have my tip and my cuticle be really harsh. And now I'm just going to go in with the coarse 100 file and file these edges, just because I haven't decided whether I want to completely encapsulate them. So I think filing it right now is the best option. And I'll probably have to go in and grunge up the edges just a little bit again, just because I'll probably be uncovering a lot of gold by doing this. Okay, so I filed my edges quite well. I'm kind of liking that they're, not as sticking out and pointy and everything as they were. So I'm just going in with a little bit more of my polishes and making sure to cover the edges and stuff that I filed off, because they got all shiny and not good looking. So that one's curing. I'm going in with my next one, my French tip, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm going to grunge up a chain again. So with the last one, I struggled a bit there at the end after using the gum gel when I was putting the base on. So on this one, I'm going to try out using my edge gel and see how that does. So at this point, my edge gel has been placed all around my cuticle line, and I'm just gonna place down my chain and hope it works out. Okay, so I was struggling, and I found the best way to do this is like little bit by little bit. So just finding a section, putting my gel down, and then a quick flash cure, and then keep going round and round and round. So now just gonna go in and touch up my edges again, because where I cut, so it's not all bright and gold. So now I want to do my little gem embellishments. I'm going to go in with my Crazy Top Standard and just put a thin layer right all up in there. Make sure my chain is really well secured. Gonna go around in the back. I'll grab my detailing brush in a minute to help out. I'm just gonna fill it in really nicely in the back there. We don't want anything getting caught. No hairs, nothing caught up in there. And trying to make sure I shove it nicely into all the little nooks and crannies of the chain, because that stuff will start to discolor and cause issues if it's not fully encapsulated well. And I'm gonna do the same for this nail. Then I'm gonna add some little embellishments, a few rhinestones, some caviar beads, that kind of good stuff. And there we go, just a little something something to jazz it up. So I'm gonna do the same with this nail here. Just add a few little pretty embellishments, just to kick it up a notch. And lastly, all we've got left for these two is a nice thin glossy top coat, just to make sure we're securing over our caviar beads so that they don't pop off or discolor, and then going around our gem so that we don't ruin any of the shine on that crystal, because crystals, you don't want to put any top coat on them or they will lose their shine. And there, wait for that to self-level a bit, and we cure and it's done. Then we go in the same way here, just trying to make sure that my caviar beads are nicely coated, avoiding my shiny little crystal there. And I'll go in with my detail brush and make sure it's nicely leveled around my crystal, and then pop it in the lamp and it's done. So now for our middle finger, we're going to go in with a base of BM10, and like usual, to build that color, we're going to pull the magnet out of our first layer, cure that, and we're going to go in with a second layer that we magnetize, and we're just going to bring up a glow for the whole bed. We're going to cure that. Then we're going to go in with some of our other colors again, the ones that kind of mimic metallics. So I've got BM11, 15, and 16. We're just going to layer them down a bit. And again, I'm just going to feather them out with my brush, because we don't want any harsh edges. So once everything feels nicely blended, I'm just going to pull the magnet out to start. And then I'm going to kind of bring it back in some areas. I just don't want the whole thing lit up with magnet. Just kind of random. I'm going to go back in and just darken that up just a little bit more in a few spots, and just do the second layer the same way. As I'm doing this, I'm realizing how simple these polishes would be to use to do a really beautiful tortoiseshell. It would just almost make itself. Now that our colors are really nicely blended, again, doing the same thing, just hitting it with a little bit of magnet here and there, just to get a few little highlights wherever. Once that's all cured, I'm gonna go in with some alcohol, wipe off that tacky layer. Next, I'm bringing my stamping plate back out, going with this reverse stamping image of gears right in here. This time I'm not going in with a sticky, I'm going in with the same dark plum, black plum that I used for my map. It's not coming out ideal, so I'm actually going to thin it out a little bit because I think it might be thickening. Yep, thinning out was all it needed for a perfect pickup. Lots of times that's all it is, guys. Your polish may seem like it's thin enough because it's spreading nice and easily, but that don't mean it is. So we've got this perfectly perfect image of our gears. Now going in with our base coat to seal that in so that the real fun can begin. So here comes the fun part. I'm going to go back in with the JIN.B Gum Gel because I need me a sticky layer that I can work over. So my layer's all sticky now, and I have got these adorable gears, metal gears. So I'm going to pick out a bunch of those, and I am going to place them over. And just like I thought, the base is nice and sticky, so it makes putting these thin metal elements really easy. I really like this one. It's too big though, so I'm gonna cut it. Perfect. All right, now some of these are a little more raised than I would like, so I'm gonna play with them and try and get them to sit a little flatter. And because they're so shiny, especially the gold, I want to distress them a little bit. So I am going to go in with my colors once again and color them up a bit. Especially like, I don't want the silver. So I'm gonna really try and coat that so that it does not look at all silver. And it'll look way better then. And I'm just gonna go along in with my flash cure and do layer by layer, because it does take a little bit of coating to get them without blopping it on. So what I'm gonna do is go in with a rubber base, and I'm going to try curing just one little section at a time. I feel like that way I'll have better control and I can push down the areas that I need to without having to worry about the whole entire thing curing. Now I know it's gonna make for a bunch of messes, but that's okay. It's all gonna need encapsulation anyways. It's really only this one piece that I see being a wee bit difficult because this one gear is really up in the air. Right, so I saved the best for last. Well, the hardest. This one was not folding over as nicely as the rest. So let's see if I can possibly get it to do what I want. I think I might have it. Let's see. If I put this here, I put this here, and I slide under, I should be able to get it and hopefully not cure my tweezers in there. Yay, I pretty much did it. Good. So it's mostly nice and flat for the most part. So that's excellent. So I know it looks a whole heap of mess here, but that's okay. Don't be worrying. I'm going to encapsulate it really good. And it shouldn't even have to be too high because most of the metal went down nice and close to the nail. So it's just going to be a matter of evening it out and filing it nice and smooth. All right, so I feel like it's probably sufficiently encapsulated. So I'm gonna wipe off that tacky layer with some alcohol. Then I'm gonna go in and file. And I'm just gonna use a very fine buffer, 240, and I just want to smooth it out and refine that shape. Actually, it's 240 is gonna take forever. I'll get a better one. I'm gonna hit it with a 180 instead. Make it a little quicker. I just have to be cautious to not overfile. There we are, it's all filed and my shape has been nicely refined. We're not too thick. It's gonna be a little thick, of course, because it's encapsulated. Can't get away from that. But all in all, we're looking beautiful. So I'm gonna go in with my thin viscosity MAYO Top Gel, and I'm really excited to see this. What do we got? Oh, look at that, you guys. Yikes. And it was really easy. Look at that. All right, last up we've got the pinky, and I've had kind of no clue what I was gonna do with this one, but here goes nothing. I'm gonna go in with BM10, which is the same color that we used on the thumb. Well, the base color, main color. And just as before, I'm gonna pull the magnet out of the first layer. So we have just our jelly color. And cure that. And the second layer, we're going in, and this one we're going to magnetize. First we pull it out. That'll help pull out any streakiness. And we're just gonna bring it up and try and do the full nail. There we go. Perfect. Cure that. Now I've made a boo-boo that I'm gonna go try and go in and fix. I want to do that satin look, so hopefully it'll work with a second layer. Not sure, we shall see. So we're going to try again. We're going to demagnetize, then we're going to pull it up. Now that it's pulled, we're going to go in with our cotton and do our little marks. Yeah, it's just a lot darker, but that'll be fine. Now we did end up with a lot of fuzz left behind on this one, so I'm going to be sure to go and pick it off first so I'm not curing all of that into my nails, because that would suck. Now, just as I did with the matte thumbnail, I'm going to go in and distress it a little bit with some color just to make it a little more interesting. Just remember to really bleed out your edges because you don't want it being noticeable. And that's the trick. There, so I feel like I've got a nice little bit of color assortment. So I'm going to cure that. Or maybe I'll magnetize it. Just a little, not too much, because that magnet's showing from underneath and it looks really cool. And I'm going to go in with some more isolated chrome stamping. So starting out with my matte top coat to make that really easy for my isolated chrome. And I'm going to go in with this image here from my steampunk plate. And again, having my chrome ready, sticky stamping polish, and I'm going to resize it because my pinky is little and this stamp isn't as little. Hopefully I got my size about right. It's going to be a lucky one. All right, chrome. Chrome makes everything better. That'll fix my mistakes. You know, it's not a mistake. It's just a bit of a wiggly one. No reason it can't be wiggly though, right? So that worked well enough. Now I'm going to go in and seal it with my base gel. And I want to embellish this again, so I'm going to go back in with my gum gel because that worked pretty well. All right, so I've managed to get my gears down really, really flat, so I shouldn't have to do like major encapsulation with them, I wouldn't think. And I got my crystal there, so I'm going to wait for my crystal actually, just so it doesn't get buried in the encapsulation, because I will have to do a little bit regardless for these gears. So I'll put that in just after. So I'm going in again with my rubber base to seal these in, and hopefully I won't even have to file. Not sure, but we'll see. And so close to the end, of course, my dogs distracted me, and I forgot to distress my gears before going in with my rubber base, but I saved it. And I just, after the first layer, I started doing my distressing, and even though there's already a rubber base on it, it seems to be taking it okay. So I'm just going to continue a little bit of that and then seal up the rest. Okay, crisis seems to be averted. I go back in with another layer of my base. Unfortunately, that is going to thicken it up a little bit extra. So it was easier for me just to do a quick finish file. I didn't have much to do. So now I'm going to go in just with a little base, and I'm going to add some little details. It's going to be my caviar beads, and then I'm going to put in my crystal. Okay, we've got them nicely adorned, and now I'm going to cure. Last, I'm going to go with some Crazy Top Standard to give myself a nice glossy top coat and seal in those caviar beads so we don't get any discoloration. And then, of course, do a good job of going around my crystal so that it does not mess with the shine. I'll go around it with my detail brush. So I went to bed last night thinking that I would get up in the morning and close up my filming and finish it off. But instead, I had a dream. I had a dream that my nails were not finished because they needed some little charms. And I just so happened to have some that might actually work. So this is something I've never done before. And we are going to attempt it now. Possibly ruin my nail, but I'm really going to hope not. And I'm just going to do my best and see what happens. So I want it on the side, kind of at the tip. So first I'm going in with a really, really tiny file bit, e-file bit. And I'm just going to I'm not going to push, I'm just going to rest it and kind of let the bit do the work for me, because otherwise you'll push it all over and it'll bounce around on top of the nail. I'm going to turn this up. Oh my goodness, I think it's working. I'm being so super cautious because I'm just really scared. I think I just broke through. Felt like it. I did. I made it through. So far, so good. My jump rings are pretty darn small, but... So I've just got my little jump ring here. And if you have another set of pliers, or you can use your fingers, I've got this little jump ring opener. And let's see if it's big enough. Okay, just like that. It was easy. So I've got my tiniest keys and my tiniest gear. And I think I'm gonna go with these two. I don't know if it'll fit both, but I'm gonna try. Doesn't hurt to try, or hopefully I don't hurt it. It may hurt to try, we'll have to see. Now these are a little bigger than I would typically suggest for a nail charm, but they're not actually nail charms, they're just crafting bits. Okay. What I think I'm gonna do is grab a second jump ring. Okay, so I've got my little gear on, and okay, I'm gonna close up the gear. Now, I'm gonna put the gear in behind on the ring. Okay. Oh my gosh, I'm getting so excited. Oh my gosh, I'm getting so excited. Okay, okay. And there's my key on there. Now going with my pliers. Let's see what we got. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. My dream worked. Ah, that's so crazy. Because I was feeling like this nail was really cool, but I felt like it was a little bit lacking. There was something missing. And that's kind of what it was. And there we have it. Look at these adorable charms on here. Oh my Lord. So now I'm going to want to go in and put a top coat onto them to seal them, as well as the jump rings and that, because otherwise they're going to risk discoloring with everyday wear. So you do want to make sure to seal them up so that you don't have any issues down the road. They don't lose their color or turn or change, get nasty, just like with the chains. So my first ever nail charms, and it was an absolute whopping success. It turned out freaking phenomenal. Like, I just can't even. I'm so incredibly pleased with myself. I can't believe it. Oh my goodness. For real, man. Like, I can't fucking believe it. I'm so impressed. I did not think I'd be able to pull these off to this extent. And I'm so happy that I did. Thank you so much for being here, guys. I really hope you enjoyed that. I think it's the most fun I've had in a really long time playing with nails. This was an unexpected super passion project because I didn't know that's what was going to happen. And I absolutely love steampunk. Well, I really hope this was anywhere near as much fun for you as it was for me. Once again, thank you so much, Sweetie Nail Supply, and by Muse for this insanely awesome espresso collection. It was so perfect. I had so much fun doing this. I'm in love. Well, I really hope you learned something from this. I sure know I did. And if you still have any questions, just let me know. Put something in the comments and I will most certainly answer. This was such a cool learning experience. I picked up so many new tricks and tips and goodies galore. And I don't know if I've ever had anything turn out better. If you're loving this set anywhere near as much as I am, you'll find the link down in the description below. And of course, use my code LYN to save yourself some money and help support my channel. As always, of course, until next time, don't forget to love your nails. Bye.